Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for coming and gracing our house. It's the first time that we have had guests, and we're honoured that we're able to host a SHiur. I think Emil is going to have to wait just a little bit longer. Look in there and see. We're in a clear case of IKEA anti-Semitism. They informed us that the kitchen is being delivered on the 9th of October. If you want to guess what date that is. All together now? You're ready for it, of course. So that will have to wait a little bit longer. But it's a covet for us that we are able to have our first communal event in our house. It still sounds a little bit strange saying our house, but this is our house, Mi'etz Hashem. This is our home, and we look forward to many more, Mi'etz Hashem. And therefore it's special for us that we're able to welcome you to share some Torah some thoughts in the run-up to Rosh Hashanah. And also it's a special date because tonight is the Shloshim of Esther, Hashono, and therefore we dedicate these words of Torah Le'ilui Nishmas Esther Bas Yoel Hashono T'yeh Nishmos Tzur B'Tzor HaChayim. I had one major encounter with her. You knew her a lot better than I did, and therefore it will be more meaningful to you. But I think it was the second trip that we made here. I'm not sure whether it was with you, I can't remember. And Yoel and Esther quite forcefully asked for a meeting, and I couldn't quite work out initially sort of who they were, but this was a meeting about Aaron and his chinuch, and that was uppermost in their minds, how and where to take him forward. And that says everything, that whatever we're doing in our professional lives, those neshamas that we're in charge of, our own and those of our children, are paramount. And when we went to see Yoel again last week, we had the idea for this, just sort of checking in on him and seeing how he was doing and staying in touch. And he shared this with us, and this is the first source. I mean, the title is sort of more about being clever than anything else. Those of you will either own up to knowing what the title means or not. The King and I, and then days of awe or awful days, Yomim Noiraim. And tonight we're not going to speak so much about why that word Noira is used and how it connects to this series, this mini-series of Yomim Tovim, which is somehow sandwiched within the bigger, it's a set, it's a subset within the larger set. We have Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot, and then in the middle somehow we have this little set which has its own identity, the Yomim Noiraim of Elul, Rosh Hashanah, Aseret Simei Tshuva, and Yom Kippurim. And how and why that gets the title Noira is perhaps a story for another time. But what I'd like to share with you this evening is not anything that is very profound. It's a time to go back to basics. It's a time to think about a single strategy, which is something that which is absolutely achievable. And it cuts to the heart of what it means to be a good Jew. And we'll end up, believe it or not, my wife can't believe I'm saying this, we'll end up with something practical, not just philosophical or out there as a conceptual idea, but we're going to go on a little bit of a journey. And the first source here is an anecdote which Yoel showed us, and he said this was something, maybe some of you will remember this, I don't know. He said this was something that Esther saw, and it resonated with her. She connected to this very much, and she printed it out, and apparently, so Yoel said, gave it to a number of women. It's something that spoke to her, and I'll just quickly read it. The Kloisenberger Rebbe Zatzal wrote the following letter to someone who was ill. And those of you who may know who the Kloisenberger Rebbe was, and this is important because he was somebody, and if we get time we'll come back to it right at the end. He is somebody who went through the SHiur and lost absolutely everything. A wife and 10 children. And picked himself up and rebuilt a dynasty, a Hasidus, and perhaps most notably, the Tzanz Laniado Hospital which is a world-class hospital, which is run entirely on Torah lines. And the stories of his love and his compassion for every Jew are legendary. But he wrote the following letter to someone who was ill. Quote, "The main thing is that you should be strong with your trust in Hashem, because a Yid may never lose hope, chas v'shalom. A Yid must live with bitachon constantly. Believe that HaKadosh Baruch Hu can do anything and everything, and nothing is hard for him, and for him it is never too late. Trust that Hashem will certainly send his aid from heaven. With genuine emunah you will feel joy in the depths of your heart, and emunah draws down the Yeshua brachos and the refuah shalem." Now, this is a massive topic, and we need to approach it. The truth is, there's no way that in a single half an hour, 40-minute presentation or SHiur that we can go through all of this topic. The balance between Hashem's oversight and providence and the way that he interferes, if you like, and runs the world, and balancing that with our autonomy, balancing that with our bechira, balancing that with our ability and obligation to do whatever we can, and how the two interact with each other, and which one prevails, is something that we'll touch on a little bit tonight. It's very sophisticated as well, it's very intellectual, and there's a lot, but we're not going to do that tonight. We're going to stick to a true but a very simple concept, which is absolutely, utterly applicable. Now I want to start with a story, lighten the tone just a little bit. It's a story that I was zeicha to hear from the venerable Maggid of Yerushalayim, Reb Shalom Shvadron, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, just gone to yeshiva, just gone to Brisk, and he was. You may have read some of the books. It's hard to describe what a Maggid means. A Maggid is somebody. He was a massive Talmud Chacham, Einikel of the Marasham. He edited all of his. Exactly where my Sfarim are. That's Torah, the Marasham. One of the biggest poskim. He was a massive Talmud Chacham, but he had a personality and a charisma that was larger than life. And he would pack out Zichron Moshe. If you know Yerushalayim, Zichron Moshe, the Bachar would be hanging from anywhere there was on a Friday night, and he would hold us rapt with attention. And he would spin a yarn, a tale, and he'd make you believe that you were absolutely dead. I'll tell you one of the stories that he told us. Apparently a true story. In the late 60s, maybe the early 70s, at the Knisat HaEir, at the beginning of the entrance to Yerushalayim. Yes? Grand Central Station, mayhem, chaos. Israelis leaving and going in and going round and going out, and then there are these things called traffic lights, which are optional if you feel like it. And there was this eccentric figure. His name was Tom Ale. And Tom Ale bought himself a peaked cap. He was a Yerushalayim. He bought himself a peaked cap, which of course gives you authority, right? So he bought himself a peaked cap, and he would stand at the entrance to the Knisat HaEir at rush hour every day and cheat death, with all the cars whizzing around him, and he would stand there with a stick, and he would conduct them and tell them where to go, and they would try and avoid him, and he diced with death every single day. And he was utterly convinced. People said to him, "Tomale, what are you doing?" And he said, "What do you mean, what am I doing? I am making sure that the drivers of Yerushalayim stay safe and alive. That's my job, that's what I'm doing. Can't you see? I'm directing the traffic." And they said to him, "Don't be silly, Tom Halek. Can you see that thing up there? Yeah, Ramzorim, yeah, the traffic lights. It's they doing it." He said, "Come on. Who do you listen to? A bulb or a human being? Of course they're listening to me. I'm going to listen to a bulb. What's a bulb? Who listens to a bulb?" So they said, "No, it's dangerous. You're not doing anything. Let's prove it. Very simple. One day, just don't show up one day and we'll see. Don't show up one day and you'll see that it's not actually you, it's actually the traffic lights." And he looked back, incredulous. He said, "Are you normal? Are you willing to risk the lives of the citizens of Yerushalayim? How can you take that risk? If you're wrong, dozens of people will die. You can't take that risk." and therefore resolutely stood there every day, maybe till his dying day, I don't know, maybe, I don't know what happened to him. But this is Tomale, and he's one of the characters of Yerushalayim. And we all laughed at Tomale. This is what Reb Shalom did. We all laughed. And then there was a moment's silence. And he said, aye, 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 aye. That was his. And we knew we were in for it. And then he showed us. Are we not that Tomale? We go about our daily lives utterly convinced that we're in the driving seat, that we're in charge. My life, my family, my career, I'm in charge. I determine the outcome of everything. And I'm busy doing that, whilst perhaps neglecting the thing that I'm really meant to be doing. Perfecting myself, bettering myself as a person, as a Jew. Maybe Hashem is running the world. And he made us see that, and he deflated us. Let's have a look at this, because this is a balance that needs to be understood. And we start with Rosh Hashanah, and it's really important to realize that when one learns Torah, as I'm sure you know, especially when one is learning either Chumash or the words of Chazal, the words themselves, they're almost like codes. You have to know what a concept or a word means. And we're going to take one word tonight, and we're going to look at one aspect of one word, and the word is tzaddik. What does that word mean? We think of the words that are connected to it, tzedakah. And tzedakah is not charity, it's the worst possible translation. Tzedek is what is just, what is appropriate, what is correct, something that is performing its task, doing what it is meant to do and meant to be. And here we're let into a little secret. It's a famous Gemara. I've put it here both in Hebrew and in English. It's a Gemara we all know. I'll rush through it. Amar Rav Kruspedoya, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. There are 3 books open on Rosh Hashanah. There's a book of Roshim, the book of the wicked. There is the book of Tzadikim and the book of those who are somewhere in between, and we'll leave those for the moment. And essentially, on Rosh Hashanah, we somehow need to get into that book, the book of Tzadikim. You get into the book of Tzadikim, you're okay, without going into the technicalities of when that exactly is done and how that is done, and we're also ignoring the fact that it says Tzadikim Gemurim, totally, Tzadikim, just leaving all that leaving that aside for a second. What does it mean to be a tzaddik? So somehow I have to get into that book. There's a very simple question, and the Rambam here, it's not on the sources here, but the Rambam gives it a whole different gloss. And that is, to be a tzaddik, he says, and the Gemara says also, is to somehow qualitatively, not quantitatively. It's not a simple mathematical cheshbon. HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows better than we know ourselves, our challenges, our opportunities, who we are, our whole situation, and he takes all of these things into account, and he makes some sort of cheshbon. And if you have more merit, more zechusim than aveiros, you okay? No, you're going to get blown away? Where's Mary Poppins doing that? Okay, so maybe close it, whatever. I love fresh air, so sorry. If you have more zechusim than aveiros, then you're a tzaddik. Hold on a second. We know and we believe that there is utter and absolute accountability for everything that we say, do, and think. So what's this? What does it mean to be a tzaddik? So very good. So somehow, qualitatively, the scale has tipped and you are a tzaddik. What does that even mean? Why is that relevant? Ultimately, at the end of the day, we give absolute accountability for everything. It doesn't work that way. It's not like a bank account, you know that, right? It's not like when you put money in and you spend it and you have a balance and they balance each other out. No. They don't do that. We will be punished for every single aveira, whatever that means, and rewarded for every single mitzvah. Consequences, not punishment. So they don't balance each other out. So what is going on? And the Rambam says more than that. He says, "Kashem sheshekli navinosav shel adam b'shas misosei kach b'chol shana v'shana." Just as there will come a day in all of our lives, the final reckoning, when we will stand in front of Hashem, and there will be nowhere to hide. And it will be, we call it the Olam HaEmes. It's the world of absolute, unvarnished truth. And it just is. It's just absolutism. It is the most real thing there is. And there's nowhere to hide. There's nothing we can do. It's real. At that moment in time, can you say, just a second, I want to do one more mitzvah? That is what it means. It means it's final. Kashem, says the Rambam. There is a sense in which, just as there is a finality to the determination of who you are at the end of your life, kach b'chol shana v'shana. Similarly, every single year, on Rosh Hashanah at some point, you and I and every Jew and every person on this planet will undergo at some point, will go into that, we'll probably do it tomorrow morning after the UK, this body scanner thing, this spiritual ultrasound, this MRI, and it'll see right through you, and it's paskened. You are defined. This is not about, and this is the first point, this is not about the consequence, punishment or otherwise, for what you have done. This is about who you are. And never the twain shall meet. These are two totally different things. Of course, there will be a time when we will have to live through the reality that we have created for ourselves, good or otherwise. But that's not what Rosh Hashanah is about. Rosh Hashanah is a snapshot, a spiritual ultrasound at a particular moment in time. Who are you? What are you? And that, my friends, is good news, as we shall see. So on Rosh Hashanah we get a definition, tzaddik. Now, who or what is a tzaddik? Let's move on a little bit. And here we come to a Gemara. Again, I'm sure I'm teaching you nothing that you don't know this evening. But this is one of the most amazing Gemaras. It's majestic in its imagery, if you think about it. I teach this to teenagers. Did last year anyway, probably not doing it this year. And if it's really, really understood and internalized, it is absolutely life-changing. Unfortunately, it's slightly too long to be a fridge magnet, but it somehow really absolutely needs to be. Says the Gemara, Malach HaMamun al HaHaroya, Laila Shmei, there is a Malach that is in charge of conception, the creation of a human being, and it's called Laila. And at the moment of conception of a human being, this Malach takes the drop of genetic matter and places it in front of the Kisei HaKavod. I mean, just that image, just close your eyes and imagine that concept. A drop of genetic matter being placed in front of a Kisei HaKavod, the throne of glory, whatever that means, with all the retinue and the Malachim, everybody there, and the question is asked. What will be the fate of this drop? And the three key questions. Chacham oitipesh. Will this person be smart, clever, or, as I think you have to say today, academically challenged? In my day it was thick. Thick. Chacham oitipesh. Giboy cholosh. Physical strength or weak, subject to have a weak immune system, whatever. And Oshiroi Oni, rich or poor. And the answer comes back at that moment in time. And the idea is, of course, that it is in our very genes. This is the moment that the genetic markers are laid down physically and spiritually. It's done, it's dusted, it's all over. The answer comes back loud and clear. Ke sera sera. This is it, it's done. It's done. Job done, finished. HaKadosh Baruch Hu answers and says it's done. Which then, of course, raises... Now, as a quick aside, for those of you that are wondering about some of the other stuff, of course, there is at least 2 or 3 shiurim as a sidebar to this, where the Gemara asks in the very same Masechta, 60 dafim later, what can a person do to become smart? And the Hashono there asks the question, does it not contradict this? Not for now. I'm just acknowledging, of course there are other things that go with it. But it means that in broad terms, it's done. Dusted. Game over. If you're a philosopher, you'd probably call it hard determinism. Game over. So then, the futility of living. So why do I need to exist? It's all done. Ve'ilu tzadik v'rosha loika omar. Back to that word. But the one thing, the key thing, the only thing, our very raison d'etre, that's not determined. Tzaddik v'rosha. And we need to define that. Says the Gemara, Kid Rav Chanina, and this is the source for the saying, everything is in the hands of heaven besides for the fear of heaven. Are you going to be a tzaddik and a rosha? Will you take the things, the challenges that you're given, and what you will do with them? The person that you will become, that is not determined at all. That is who you are. And the Chofetz Chaim used to say on the basis of this Gemara, if we really get this, and by the way, I need to be crystal clear so I'm not misunderstood, and with teenagers this turns into a massive debate, which is really the idea. I'm trying to provoke them. So then why do I bother even getting a job? It's all determined. Okay. I'm doing it on your behalf. Why do I go to the doctor? Of course you have to get a job. Of course you have to go to the doctor. You have to look after your health. Of course you have to try and maximize the intelligence that you're given within certain parameters. But there are limitations. And that is set. It's done. It's dusted. But the one thing, our very reason for existence, says the Chofetz Chaim, think about this. Is there a greater tragedy? 99% of people spend 99% of their time trying to change the things that they absolutely can't. And the one thing, our very reason for existence, the person that we will become, our Yiras Shamayim, our Midas, our Derech Eretz, our Torah, our Tefillah, that is our whole reason for being. I'm too busy. I haven't got time. I haven't got time. Of course we have to have a job. And by the way, a lot of the Yiras Shamayim can be within the job situation. Your moral decisions, your integrity within the workplace. I mean, there's loads. Any moral opportunity to act well, to think well, to speak well. That's all included in Tzaddik v'Rosha, to be clear. It doesn't go into the Chocham or the... It means the other stuff is predetermined. The outcome is predetermined. And that's that in and of itself. If we got that, how many of us, please forgive me, I'm going to do my rabbi thing. One of my achievements, very few, with my previous kahila was, this was a theme that I repeated again and again and again, because it is absolutely key. I think we were the only kahila, certainly in Edinburgh, I don't know elsewhere in London, where in Elul, from Rosh Chodesh Elul till Yom Kippurim, between Mincha and Mariv, there was a 5-minute, on the clock, there was a 5-minute Musa Seder. And when I say Musa, you don't have to learn anything, just sit and think. That's fine, that's Musa, that's probably the best Musa. Just sit and reflect, just contemplate. How did I get through the last 24 hours? How did I respond to situations, to challenges, spouse, children, employer, employee, person on the street? What could I have done better? What should I do better? What am I planning to respond better tomorrow? That's real me time. That is the only real me time. The other stuff is great. Go to the gym, do all the other stuff we have to. But this is our very reason for being. That's, be selfish. Be selfish. Because you matter. That's what we're here for. And then the next Gemara tells us. Ve'ino yotze misham. It's a Gemara in the same Masechta a little bit further on. The Gemara says that before we leave the womb, so now we know what happens at the moment of conception, okay? But then just before we leave the womb, we take an oath. An oath. An oath. A shavua. We take an oath. And this is your exit ticket, if you like. You do not exit until you take the oath. What is the oath? You take the oath. We're on source 4. We say it in Aleinu. What's this oath that we take? Says the Gemara. What's the... Mahi Hashua, next page. The Hebrew, next page. Page 3. Umahi Hashua. What is the shvua that we take? Tehi tzaddik. Be a tzaddik. That word again. So what's missing? We said what's missing in the original genetics, if you like, which is laid down, whether you are a tzaddik or a Rosh, that's missing. And to emphasize that before we get out, we are told you have to take an oath. What is the oath? Interesting. It doesn't say do the mitzvahs, don't do any averos. It doesn't say that. It says be a tzaddik. You have to somehow become a tzaddik. We still have to define what this means. Who or what is a tzaddik? But you can see we're developing a theme here. On Rosh Hashono, we're trying to get into the book of tzaddikim. What is a tzaddik? A tzaddik, it seems, is somebody who has qualitatively more mitzvahs than averos. And it's final. The ultrasound is taken at a moment in time, says the Rambam, just as there is a finality at the moment of death, and there's nothing you can do to change it. Similarly, you have to be a tzaddik at a point. It's usually Tkir Shofar, but we could debate exactly when it is. At that point in time, your identity is defined and set in stone for the whole next year. This is not about accountability for what you have done. Maybe that's Yom Kippurim. Maybe. Rosh Hashanah is about who are you at a given moment in time. Are you a tzaddik? The SHiur, the oath that we take before we leave the womb, is be a tzaddik. Now we need to find out who or what is a tzaddik. So, cut it short a little bit. We go to the next source, a fascinating thing. I don't know if you've ever thought about it in these terms. The bracha. There is a bracha in Shemona Esra al hatzadikim. It's topped and tailed with that word. Al hatzadikim and mishal miftach al hatzadikim. It's true there are other people that somehow creep in there. Chasidim and Geirei Hatzedek, and we could debate why they're there. But this is the bracha. This is the bracha of tzadikim. So we're getting somewhere. So now I want to know what a tzaddik is. Let's look at the bracha. It'll give us an insight as to who or what it means to be a tzaddik. And here, something quite interesting emerges. Let's just translate. Let's go through the bracha. May your compassion, your mercy be poured out upon us. And then we include somebody else. V'sein sochar tov, give good reward. And again, time doesn't really permit. What is this good reward? We have it somewhere else. Baruch Shalem sochar tov lireov at the beginning of davening. V'sein sochar tov l'chol haboitchem b'shimcha be'emes. All those who put their faith and their trust in you. Because that is what it means to be a tzaddik. That's it. I'll explain what that means, and we'll show it in a very simple and practical way. V'sein sochar tov, good reward, l'chol haboitchem b'shimcha be'emes. Anybody that has true bitachon. And we'll show what that means. V'simchalkeinu imohem. May our lot be in with them, and then we will not be ashamed, for we have trust in you. Baruch atah Hashem, mishon u'miftach latzadikim. The support and the trust of the righteous. And then finally, we have the Gemara, which again I'm sure many of you are aware. The Gemara says that there was a process whereby, as we went down the generations, Yirmiyah, David and others, the ability to focus on a single concept, that it should be the essence of our Yiddishkeit, of our Judaism and our relationship with Hashem, although there are 613. But is there anything, or are there any principles that are fundamental, are core, which we can use to understand and achieve the others? And as time went on and our capacity to multitask spiritually diminished, it came to a point in time right at the end of Nevuah. Habakkuk came along, says the Gemara, Ba Habakkuk ve'emidon al achas. Habakkuk came along and he stood. Amud is a pillar, that upon which all else rests. He'emidon, he made all of Judaism stand al achas on one simple concept. V'tzadik be'emunosoi yechya. A tzaddik lives with and by and through his emunah. What does that mean? It's actually incredibly simple. It's very, very straightforward. It is cultivating an awareness of Hashem in our lives at as much as we possibly can as we go through our daily lives. That is what it means. It's as simple as that. How often, if we're honest with ourselves, we all know. And that, by the way, is the difference between emunah and bitochen. Although the word here used is emunah, you'll have to trust me in this one. I can show you the Torah and the sources that go with it. It doesn't mean emunah, it means bitochen. The word emunah here is used generically, but it absolutely means bitochen. Now, what is bitochen? Bitochen, and this is the key idea, emunah is an intellectual idea. Bitochen is fundamentally an emotion. It is when we have taken that which we know intellectually, and we can subscribe to an idea intellectually. But the success of taking that and making it so real that I genuinely feel it, that is bitochen. Some more, some less. It's a sliding scale. It's a continuum. The Chayva Salvavus puts it this way: Mahus habitochen hu menuchas nefesh haboteach. The essence, the very definition of bitochen, is the inner calm. Menuchas nefesh haboteach. The equanimity is the correct English term. The calm, the tranquility, the inner peace. What does that mean? Let's think about that for a second. What does that mean? Emunah means, I know X. I know Hashem runs the world, but then when something doesn't go right, I get flustered. Stop and analyze that for a second. There are exercises that one can and must do. We'll come to that in a second. That's the practical element. Whereby, if we get used to, there are certain things that you can do and you can say to help you. A sort of spiritual physiotherapy, if you like. So that our muscle of emunah, and it is a muscle, it doesn't atrophy. It doesn't, if God forbid somebody has to be in bed for many weeks and then they get out of bed, they've got to learn how to walk again. The muscle sees up. Emunah is a muscle. Chazon Ish in his Igros calls it that very, very clearly. We're born with it. Everybody believes. You choose what you believe in. You believe in a football team. You can believe in what everybody. If we don't have that basic concept of trust, there can be no relationship. We learn that with our parents, right from the word go, that there are people we can rely on, we can trust. We may not understand them, we may not like them, we may think that they are but we know, at the end of the day, they're there for me. Thick or thin. That's the model. That's why we have parents. That's why we are, as the mammal that is most reliant on the parents for the longest. You've all seen the little elephant, getting up. David Attenborough showing us the little elephant getting up and walking 20 miles to the watering hole. It's only 3 hours old. And then we have the 28-year-old who's still living in the hotel of mum and dad, as they call it today. Go figure. We are the most brilliant. We should be the most independent. We're not. What do we do, by the way, in the circle of life? What do? We start out as dependent. And then we can't wait to become independent. And what do we do with that independence? We become interdependent. We choose to tie our lot in with somebody else. And then somebody predeceases somebody else, and we become independent again. And then at the end of our life, we become dependent again. We're right through the circle of life. Trust. We have to have trust. We all do trust. We choose who we trust and what we trust. We learn it. And we have a choice. We have a choice to take all these ideas, all these Gemaras. I bet I didn't tell anybody a Gemara tonight you did not know. I have no doubt. I make no apologies for that. Emunah is what we know. Bitochen is managing to do these exercises to the point that we actually genuinely feel it. How can you tell? The extent to which you are able to be calm. And of course, different people have different temperaments. That goes without saying. It's all relative. That goes without saying. But it is absolutely something. And to the extent, here's the thing, the extent to which you are genuinely able to feel that connection, that reliance, that trust, and that calmness, to that extent you are a tzaddik. That's what it means. Shivisi Hashem lenegdi samid, says the Ramah at the beginning of Shulchan Aruch, who klal gadol b'Torah u'b'malas hat tzaddikim. That's what it means to be a tzaddik. A tzaddik is somebody, and you can be a big tzaddik or a little tzaddik. Tzaddikes. But that is ultimately what it means. And it's very, very, very simple. It could not be any simpler. When it comes to Rosh Hashanah, there's one thing and one thing only that is happening. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is revisiting the viability of his project, of his enterprise, and he wants team players. It's as simple as that. This is not about what you have done. It's utterly irrelevant on Rosh Hashanah. We don't beat our chests, we don't do nothing. It's a whole different type. It is an unparalleled opportunity. Just as at the moment of conception things are fixed, just as says the Rambam that at the moment of death there is a finality, every year on Rosh Hashanah, in an instant, you can utterly change your definition and designation. And thus, of course, where you are in the team and the resources that you are allocated for the year ahead. But it's very, very hard. Because there's no escaping. He looks straight into you and there's no fooling. Is it just, uh-oh, I'm a little bit scared now? Tough. Your business. Doesn't work that way. Not easy. But there's a way. There's a simple way. And this is something I'd like to more or less finish with this. I mean, I'll leave you with Viktor Frankl. You know Viktor Frankl. And Search for Meaning and this idea. What do we control? If he controls everything that happens to us, then what do we control? And I've just put this in to show, if you know anything about whether it's CBT or NLP, this is utterly in line with modern psychological thinking. The one thing that we do control is our frame of mind, how we frame experiences and the things that happen to us. And the minute, and here's the most empowering and liberating thing, the moment we stop trying to control outcomes, let them be, and instead actually focus internally on controlling my frame of mind, my attitude, my perspective, that you change. And there is actually the only tiny area, the most crucial area, where you are God-like. That's the Tselem Elokim, that's Bechira. Hashem, we are created with Tselem Elokim. What does that mean? Tselem Elokim means he's the boss. Well, there's an area where you are the boss. Do a quick exercise. Hands up the last time you had a day that everything went exactly according to plan. I thought you had Bechira. It's a misnomer, says the Chovos HaLevavos. It's wrong. What does Bechira mean? You are free to choose. That's what Bechira means. Nobody ever said you would be free to do. That's what it means to be Boicher. It means you're free to choose decisions. We have the ability to think autonomously, to step outside of ourselves and make choices. We are the only mammal on the planet that can make morally autonomous choices, to step back and think, why am I here? What is this all about? Purpose, meaning. That's uniquely human. To make choices. We choose how to respond. It doesn't matter what happens to you. Of course we don't control that. The older you get, the more you realize. If we're honest, accept it, embrace it, and focus instead on you, on the stuff that you can and must change, the bit that you're utterly in control of. Framing your experiences, choosing your perspective. How do we do this? I promised you something very simple, very practical. It really is not rocket science. I took this on myself. I can't remember how long ago, maybe Raquel can remind me, 10 years ago. I started saying every single bracha I make aloud. There's no such thing as a quiet bracha. The first thing it does, because this is the point, this is what they are. What is a bracha? A bracha is an encounter with the divine. That's what a bracha is. It's a cup of water. The difference is about half a second and eternity, by the way. It's either or it is Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam shehakol nהיה b'dvaro. Fake it until you make it. And then it becomes Baruch Atah Hashem, he's there. Elokeinu melech haolam shehakol nהיה b'dvaro. You are exercising that spiritual muscle. And those of you that are mothers, boy, does it make a difference in the house when brachas are said. Brachas are not mumbled. It's a tone. You're doing it anyway. Don't do anything that you're not already doing. Chas v'shalom. Don't do anything more. Just do what you're doing already and do it with quality. Put quality into it. Put a drop of thought into it. It doesn't have to take 20 minutes. You don't have to stand outside the bathroom and say 20 minutes SHiur. I don't know about you. I'm not on that madrega. I did it in the sixth form in Hasmonian. First thing I did was say, okay, everybody who can say SHiur by heart. It changes the tone in the house. Don't say anything. Don't ever say, just do it. Just do it. Assuming you're not already, which I'm sure many of you are. We're doing it anyway. We're all for all, say brachos. You're doing it anyway. And how can you not think? I mean, you all know what those words mean. You are exercising that spiritual muscle. You have just turned it from a mumbled ritual into a teeny encounter with the divine. Dozens of times a day. It impacts your life. It changes your life. It is life-changing if it's done properly. It's what we're doing anyway. But it takes it and it makes it, you become a tzaddik. You become a tzaddik. There's 2 weeks left till Rosh Hashanah. I'd like to suggest, Le'ilui Nishmas Esther, SHiur, those of you that are able to take it on, do it B'nei but just start doing it. We're doing it anyway. Being a tzaddik is somebody, and it's amazing because it actually changes your whole life because you're less anxious. You're less highly strung. You're just you don't need to be a breastliver. You don't need to be a thing. You know, he doesn't have monopoly on the people. You know, once I gave a shiur on Mashiach, and somebody said to me, "I didn't know you were a Chabad. You're a Lubavitcher." I said, "I believe in Mashiach. I don't need to be a Lubavitcher." You know, I've got some very good friends Lubavitchers, some very good friends breastlivers. I kind of get, actually, in a sense, I actually kind of get to some extent where some breastlivers are coming from. It's anti-establishment. It's like Trump. It's like Brexit. It's like we don't have trust in the establishment anymore. It's like we want to get real. We don't care anymore about the external, superficial, hypocritical structures. We want to get real. So I've got a blue shirt and I do this and I go and dance and that can also become fake, of course. But being real, and this is what it's being about, making the Ribbono Shel Olam a reality. Not to talk about him, to talk to him. 1 dozen, 2 dozen, 3 dozen times a day. You're talking to him. You're having an encounter. He's Shomer. Shomer Kol Tfilas Amo Yisrael. 2 weeks of physiotherapy to become a tzaddik, just to create an awareness that he begins to accompany you. And it's liberating. Then you've actually got the time to focus on the stuff that really matters, which is you. The other stuff, of course, we have jobs, we look after our health, we do our best. But the stuff that really matters, who am I? How do I become a better person? The stuff that I was created for, the tzaddik for Rosh, to become that tzaddik, and a tzaddik is. And then we are nechta, the sifron, shel tzaddikim,